Who are you? Nina froze when she saw a strange man standing inside her bedroom. Her voice tightened as a second question followed immediately. Why are you in my room? The man did not appear surprised. He did not step back, did not apologize, did not attempt to explain himself in a hurry. Instead, he looked at her calmly, as if he had expected this exact moment. This apartment belongs to me, he said evenly. You're the one who shouldn't be here. The words landed hard. Nina's fingers tightened around her keys. That's not possible. I rented this unit 3 months ago. From Keller, the man replied without hesitation. Her stomach tightened. Yes, he had no authority to rent it. Nina stared at him, trying to read whether this was intimidation or truth. I have keys. I pay rent. You pay someone, he corrected. That doesn't make the agreement legitimate. The man stepped slightly to the side, allowing the light from the lamp to reveal more of the tattoos covering his forearms. The ink looked old, not decorative but permanent, like a record of decisions that could not be undone. Nina Carter, he said calmly, her breath caught. How do you know my name? You signed the building entry log 3 times this week. His attention to detail unsettled her. And you are? She asked cautiously. Adrian Voss. The name meant nothing to her, but the certainty in his voice made the space feel smaller. I'm not looking for trouble, Nina said. I go to work. I come home. That's it. I believe you, Adrian replied. But the fact remains this property is under my control. Nina shook her head slowly. Then why didn't anyone tell me that? Keller took advantage of an empty unit, Adrian said. That situation is now over. A quiet panic rose in her chest. You're telling me I have nowhere to live? I'm telling you the arrangement you made was invalid. Silence settled between them. Nina forced herself to stay calm. Panic never solved anything. Panic only made people careless. I can leave, she said carefully. I just need time. Adrian studied her for a moment longer than felt comfortable. His eyes moved briefly over her worn work shoes, the hotel uniform partially visible beneath her coat, the faint tension in her posture that suggested exhaustion layered over something deeper. You work nights, he observed. Yes. You avoid attention. She did not respond. You pay in cash, he continued. You selected a location without formal registration. That suggests intention. I value privacy. Privacy often follows fear, Adrian said. The statement was direct, not judgmental. Nina hesitated before answering. I needed somewhere quiet. That usually means somewhere hidden. She did not deny it. Adrian nodded once, as if confirming a detail in a larger pattern. This building is secure, he said. Very secure. Nina remained still. I didn't mean to cause problems, she said. I just needed a place where no one would ask questions. Questions exist for a reason. Not always good ones. That answer seemed to interest him. Adrian walked to the window, briefly scanning the street below before turning back toward her. How long do you need? He asked. The question caught her off guard. A few days, she said cautiously. Maybe a week. That depends on why you're hiding. I'm not hiding. He did not argue. He simply waited. The silence forced honesty. I left someone, Nina said finally. Adrian's expression did not change. He doesn't like losing control. A brief pause. Does he know where you are? No. Will he look? Yes. Adrian considered this information without visible reaction. What is his name? Nina hesitated. Victor Hale. Recognition flickered briefly in Adrian's eyes. That complicates things, he said. Her pulse quickened. You know him? I know of him. That answer felt worse. Nina swallowed. Look, I understand if you want me gone. I'll figure something out. With what resources? Adrian asked. She did not answer. He had already noticed the worn condition of her bag, the practical clothing, the careful way she conserved movement habits, learned by people accustomed to stretching limited means. You have no formal lease, he continued. No digital address record. No financial buffer large enough for relocation. Her silence confirmed everything. I'm not asking for charity, she said. I'm not offering charity. Another pause. Adrian folded his arms calmly. You may remain temporarily, he said, but there will be conditions. Relief appeared too quickly in her expression, and she immediately tried to hide it. What conditions? You do not share this address. Of course. You do not bring visitors. I won't. You do not leave information that can be traced. I understand. Adrian nodded once. Then we have an agreement. Nina exhaled slowly, tension easing slightly from her shoulders. Thank you. This is not kindness, Adrian replied. It is risk management. She nodded. I can live with that. He studied her one final moment. People rarely choose invisibility without reason, he said. Eventually, reasons surface. Nina met his gaze steadily. Then eventually, she said quietly, you'll have your answer. Nina did not sleep much that night. The apartment remained quiet, but her mind refused to settle. Every unfamiliar sound carried meaning now, the faint vibration of an elevator cable, distant footsteps in the hallway, the low hum of city traffic far below. She lay on the edge of the bed, fully dressed, staring at the ceiling while replaying the conversation again and again. Adrian Voss. The name lingered in her thoughts, heavy in a way she could not explain. By morning, she had memorized the pattern of control in his voice. He did not ask questions randomly. He asked only what he already partially understood. At 6:15 a.m., Nina rose quietly and moved into the small kitchen. The apartment suddenly felt less like a hiding place and more like a temporary arrangement governed by rules she did not yet fully understand. She prepared coffee carefully, measuring the grounds with practiced precision. Routine helped her think. When Adrian entered the room 10 minutes later, he was already dressed for the day. Dark slacks, white shirt, sleeves rolled neatly to the forearms. The tattoos remained partially visible, though less obvious than the night before. He carried himself like a man accustomed to structure, not chaos. You wake early, he observed. I prefer not to rush, Nina replied, setting a mug on the counter without asking whether he wanted one. She simply made two. Adrian accepted the coffee without comment. You won't be returning to work today, he said. Nina looked up immediately. I can't miss a shift without notice. You already have. Her chest tightened. How would you know that? Your supervisor approved the absence at 5:40 this morning. You contacted my employer? I verified that your absence would not create attention. Nina stared at him. You had no right to do that. He removed risk. I don't need someone managing my job. You need your job to remain stable, Adrian replied calmly. Stability requires preparation. She exhaled slowly, choosing her words carefully. You don't get to make decisions for me. Adrian did not react defensively. I make decisions for my property, he said. You are currently inside that property. The distinction irritated her more than she expected. I agreed to follow your conditions, Nina said. That doesn't mean you control everything. I control exposure, he corrected. Silence stretched between them. Nina wrapped her hands around the warm coffee mug, grounding herself in the steady heat. She had left one controlling environment only days ago. She refused to walk willingly into another. What exactly do you think I'm hiding from? She asked. I don't think, Adrian replied. I confirm. That's not an answer. It is the only one that matters. She shook her head. You don't know anything about me. I know enough, he said calmly. Your financial pattern changed 6 months ago. Cash withdrawals increased. Digital purchases decreased. You removed social media connections within a 3-week window. That usually indicates separation from someone with access. Her pulse quickened. You checked my accounts? I checked activity patterns, Adrian corrected. Not content. That's still invasive. It is efficient. Nina looked down at her coffee, forcing herself to remain calm. Anger created mistakes. Mistakes created visibility. Visibility created danger. You said there would be conditions, she said quietly. State them clearly. Adrian nodded once, as if approving the request. You remain inside this building for now, he said. You do not contact anyone connected to Victor Hale. I don't plan to. You do not attempt relocation without informing me. That part feels unreasonable. It is necessary. And if I refuse? You increase your exposure. Her jaw tightened. You assume he's looking for me. I assume men like Victor Hale rarely accept loss quietly. Nina hesitated. You said you know of him, she said. What does that mean? Adrian set his coffee down. It means he has a reputation for control. That's one way to describe it. And escalation. Her chest tightened. He monitors financial movement, Adrian continued. He files legal complaints strategically. He applies pressure through indirect channels. You sound very certain. I prefer certainty. Nina looked away briefly. focusing on the faint morning light creeping through the window. He tracked my phone, she said quietly. He had access to my email. He knew where I was almost all the time. And now? I replaced the device. Adrian nodded slightly. That was the correct decision. You speak like this is normal. It is common. For you? For men like him. The answer unsettled her. You deal with people like Victor often? She asked. Adrian did not respond immediately. I deal with outcomes, he said finally. Nina considered that. What happens to the outcomes? They resolve. That's vague. It is sufficient. She exhaled slowly. I don't want conflict, she said. I just want distance. Distance is not always protection. What is? Preparation. The word lingered. What kind of preparation? She asked. Adrian moved toward the counter, retrieving a slim black folder she had not noticed earlier. Documentation, he said. Identity verification. Financial separation records. She stared at the folder. You prepared that already? I prepared options. I didn't ask for help. You accepted temporary protection. That's not the same. It often becomes the same. Nina rested her palms against the edge of the counter, steadying herself. I don't belong in your world, she said quietly. You're already inside it. The truth of that statement settled heavily between them. What exactly do you want in return? She asked. Adrian met her gaze directly. Clarity. That's all? That is never a small request. She considered that carefully. You think I'm in danger? I think you were careful for a reason. Nina hesitated before answering. He didn't hit me, she said quietly. Adrian remained silent. He didn't need to, she added. As Nina begins to realize that disappearing alone may not be enough, her story leaves us with a quiet but powerful question about courage, trust, and the cost of freedom. If this moment moved you, take a second to support the channel, like the video, subscribe, and share your thoughts in the comments about where you're watching from. And tell us honestly, if you were in Nina's position, would you have made the same choice or taken a different path? Your voice matters, and your perspective might help someone else feel less alone. A long pause followed. Control leaves fewer visible marks, Adrian said. She nodded slowly. He decided where I worked, she continued, who I spoke to, what I spent, when I slept, and leaving disrupted that structure. Yes, disruption often provokes reaction. Her grip tightened slightly on the coffee mug. I left 3 days ago, she said. I withdrew cash gradually over 2 months so he wouldn't notice. I deleted accounts slowly. I packed only what I could carry. Adrian listened without interruption. I found this apartment through a coworker, she continued. No formal lease. No online record. I thought that meant privacy. It meant invisibility, Adrian said. That was the goal. Invisibility works until someone begins searching intentionally. Nina looked up. You really think he will search this hard? Yes. Why? Adrian answered without hesitation. Because losing control creates obsession. The certainty in his voice unsettled her. I won't stay here forever, she said. That decision is premature. I need independence. You need safety first. Silence settled between them again. Finally, Nina spoke carefully. I will cooperate temporarily, she said. But I am not replacing one controlling situation with another. Adrian acknowledged the statement with a slight nod. That is not my objective. Then what is? Risk containment. She gave a small, humorless breath. That sounds like a legal term. It is. Nina studied him carefully. You don't seem surprised by any of this. I am rarely surprised. That must be exhausting. It is effective. She finished her coffee slowly. What happens now? She asked. Now, Adrian said, we prevent Victor Hale from finding you. The statement carried quiet certainty. And if he tries? Nina asked. Adrian's expression did not change. Then we adapt. The calm in his voice did not comfort her, but it did make one thing clear. Her situation was no longer temporary in the simple way she had hoped, and whatever came next would not be solved by disappearing alone. Morning passed with unusual quiet. Nina expected tension to follow every step inside the apartment, yet the silence felt structured rather than oppressive. Adrian did not hover, did not monitor her visibly, and did not attempt further conversation after their discussion in the kitchen. Instead, he moved through the space with measured purpose, occasionally stepping into the adjacent office where muted phone calls carried tones of negotiation rather than confrontation. By midday, Nina realized something unfamiliar had happened. Her body was not bracing for sudden interruption. For the first time in months, she sat without calculating escape routes. She remained cautious, however. Safety given by another person could disappear just as quickly as it appeared. She had learned that lesson gradually, one quiet compromise at a time. The apartment itself reflected discipline. Everything had a designated place. The books aligned neatly by size and subject. The kitchen counters remained clear except for a coffee machine and a glass container filled with plain oatmeal packets. Even the lighting appeared intentional, soft but bright enough to prevent shadowed corners. Adrian emerged from the office shortly after noon, placing a small paper bag on the dining table. "You should eat," he said. "I'm not hungry. You didn't finish breakfast." "That's observant. It's relevant." Nina approached the table cautiously. Inside the bag was a simple sandwich and an apple. Nothing elaborate. The normalcy of the meal felt deliberate. "You didn't have to do this," she said. "I prefer variables that are stable. I'm not a variable. You are currently an unknown factor." She allowed the faintest hint of a smile. "That's slightly better." Nina sat and opened the sandwich slowly, realizing her hands trembled less than they had the previous evening. Adrian remained standing by the window, reviewing something on his phone. "You don't leave often," she observed. "I leave when necessary. And today? Today requires proximity." She nodded quietly. "You're adjusting your schedule because of me." "I'm adjusting risk." "You speak about risk like it's measurable." "It is." "And people?" "Less predictable." Nina considered the statement carefully. "You assume I'm unpredictable?" "I assume trauma alters decision patterns." The word trauma lingered in the air. "I'm functioning," she replied calmly. "Yes," Adrian said, "but you are functioning defensively." "That's not irrational." "I didn't say it was." She took a bite of the sandwich, more out of discipline than hunger. "Are you always this direct?" she asked. "Yes." "That must create conflict. It prevents confusion." She nodded slowly. "I spent 2 years being told confusion was my fault," she said. Adrian did not interrupt. "When something went wrong," she continued, "it was because I misunderstood something obvious, or because I reacted incorrectly. Eventually, I stopped trusting my own judgment." "That is a common strategy," Adrian said. "Strategy?" "For maintaining control." She exhaled quietly. "He never shouted," she added. "That would have been easier to recognize." "Volume is inefficient," Adrian replied. "You talk about manipulation like a business model. For some men, it is." She studied his expression carefully. "You've seen this before." "Yes." "With clients?" "With consequences." Nina leaned back slightly in her chair, absorbing the answer. "Why do you care what happens to someone like me?" she asked. Adrian placed his phone down slowly. "I care about instability entering environments I manage." "That's still a technical answer." "It is accurate, but not complete." He did not respond. Nina finished the apple slowly, grounding herself in the simple routine of eating. "I used to teach children art classes on weekends," she said unexpectedly, "before everything changed." Adrian glanced toward her briefly. "Children don't overthink," she continued. "They just create. They trust the outcome will make sense later." "And adults?" "Adults try to control the outcome before starting. Control reduces loss. Control also reduces possibility." Adrian considered that. "You believe possibility outweighs security?" "I believe people need both." A quiet pause followed. Nina looked toward the large windows lining the far wall of the living room. Manhattan stretched endlessly beyond the glass, sunlight reflecting off distant buildings. "Strange," she said quietly. "What is?" "I lived in this city for 5 years and never noticed how quiet it can feel from above. Height changes perspective. Or distance. Sometimes both." She nodded slowly. "I spent 2 years living inside someone else's schedule," she admitted. "Meals at the same time. Calls at the same time. Conversations monitored. Even silence felt supervised. And now? Now silence feels unfamiliar." Adrian folded his arms calmly. "Recovery often feels unfamiliar. You assume I'm recovering. You left. That doesn't mean I'm free." "No," he agreed. "It means you moved." She appreciated the distinction. "Movement is not the same as freedom," Nina said quietly. "Freedom requires sustained distance from influence." "That sounds clinical." "It is practical." She stood slowly and walked toward the bookshelf, scanning titles without fully focusing on them. "You live alone," she observed. "Yes. Always? For many years. That requires discipline. It requires clarity. Clarity about what? What remains?" The answer carried weight. Nina ran her fingers lightly along the spine of a hardcover novel. "What remains?" she repeated. "Obligations, risks, assets, and relationships? They introduce variables." She turned slightly. "That sounds lonely. It sounds controlled. You value control more than connection. I value predictability." She studied him for a moment. "Predictability didn't save my parents," she said quietly. Adrian's expression shifted subtly. "They died in a car accident when I was 19, she added. "Everything changed overnight. I raised my younger brother while working 2 jobs. That explains your financial patterns," Adrian said. "It explains why I stayed too long," she corrected. Silence followed. "I thought stability mattered more than happiness," Nina continued. "I thought consistency meant safety. Consistency can hide deterioration." She nodded slowly. "I learned that late. Learning late is still learning." She allowed that. "You don't speak like most people," she said. "Most people speak to persuade. And you?" "I speak to conclude." "That sounds final. It prevents misinterpretation." Nina returned to the table, gathering the empty food wrapper carefully. "You believe Victor will escalate," she said. "Yes." "You believe he will search long enough to find me?" "Yes." "And you believe staying here reduces that risk?" "Yes." She inhaled slowly. "Then for now, I accept the arrangement." Adrian inclined his head slightly. "For now," he agreed. The phrase carried quiet understanding. Nina moved toward the sink, rinsing the apple core before discarding it. Normal gestures, ordinary motions, small signs that life could still exist between moments of uncertainty. Behind her, Adrian's phone vibrated once against the table. He glanced at the screen briefly before locking it again. No visible reaction. But Nina noticed the slight change in stillness. Something had shifted. "Is everything stable?" she asked. For the moment, the answer did not fully reassure her. Still, she nodded. For the first time since arriving in the apartment, she allowed herself to believe one small truth. Safety did not always feel like comfort. Sometimes, it felt like waiting in a quiet room, aware that the next decision would matter more than the last. The rhythm inside the apartment began to change on the second day. Not dramatically, not in ways that would attract attention from the outside world, but in subtle adjustments that revealed how seriously Adrian Voss took the concept of preparation. Nina noticed the shift in small details first. A new lock installed quietly on the main door while she prepared coffee. A discreet black device placed near the window that she later realized was part of a signal interference system. Even the building's hallway cameras appeared to have been recalibrated, their angles slightly altered. Nothing felt chaotic. Everything felt intentional. Adrian did not explain these adjustments unless she asked directly. And even then, his answers remained brief, focused only on what was necessary. "You upgraded security," Nina observed late that afternoon as she noticed the reinforced panel beside the door. "I corrected vulnerabilities," he replied. "You did that in less than 24 hours. I anticipated the need." She leaned lightly against the kitchen counter, watching him review something on a tablet displaying building schematics. "You always assume the worst?" "I assume the possible. That must be exhausting." "It is efficient." Nina considered that response carefully. Efficiency had once been Victor's favorite word. Efficiency in time. Efficiency in conversation. Efficiency in emotional responses. Eventually, efficiency had meant eliminating anything that did not serve his sense of order. Adrian, however, did not attempt to eliminate her presence. He adapted around it. That difference mattered. "Are you expecting him to find this place soon?" she asked. "I expect him to attempt. And if he does, he will encounter resistance." The certainty in his tone did not feel aggressive. It felt procedural. Nina folded her arms gently, thinking, "You operate like someone used to conflict. I operate like someone who prefers to prevent it." Preventing conflict usually requires understanding people. It requires understanding patterns. "And you see Victor as predictable?" "Yes." She hesitated before speaking again. "He doesn't like losing control quietly," she admitted. "When I disagreed with him, he didn't argue immediately. He waited. Then he created situations where I had no choice but to agree later." Delayed coercion, Adrian said. You say that like a diagnosis. It is a behavior model. Nina exhaled slowly. He isolated me gradually. She continued. At first it seemed reasonable. He wanted to know when I got home safely. He wanted access to shared expenses. He wanted transparency. And transparency became surveillance. Yes, and surveillance became dependency. Her silence confirmed the progression. Adrian placed the tablet down carefully. Dependency creates leverage, he said. Leverage creates compliance. I stopped noticing the difference, Nina admitted. That is the intention. She glanced toward the window, watching afternoon light fade slowly behind distant buildings. People think control always looks violent, she said, but most of the time it looks responsible. Adrian nodded once. Responsibility can be misused. I kept telling myself he cared. And now? Now I realize he cared about influence. That distinction often arrives late. She gave a faint nod. At least it arrived. Adrian's phone vibrated softly against the table. He checked the message briefly before locking the screen again. Is something wrong? Nina asked. Nothing immediate. That's not reassuring. It is accurate. She walked slowly toward the bookshelf again, scanning titles without fully registering them. You don't appear nervous, she said. Nervous reactions impair judgment. You don't feel pressure? I feel responsibility. That sounds heavier. It is. Nina studied him carefully. You didn't have to involve yourself in this situation. I chose to. Why? Because instability spreads. You speak like a strategist. I am one. She considered that. You could have asked me to leave immediately. Yes. But you didn't. No. That suggests this situation matters more than convenience. Adrian met her gaze directly. Victor Hale has a documented pattern. Her stomach tightened. What kind of pattern? Financial coercion? Legal intimidation? Reputation manipulation? He threatened to report me for theft, she admitted quietly. He already has. Nina's head lifted sharply. What? A report was filed yesterday afternoon. Her pulse quickened. That's not possible. I didn't take anything. I am aware. How do you know? Because his accusation lacks supporting evidence. That doesn't mean it won't cause damage. No, Adrian agreed. But it reveals intention. Nina felt a cold weight settle in her chest. He's building leverage. Yes. Why would he escalate this quickly? Because your departure disrupted his control structure. She turned away, processing. He always said I was impulsive, she murmured. Leaving required planning. I saved gradually. That indicates foresight. I hid small amounts of cash over time. That indicates caution. I changed passwords slowly. That indicates adaptation. Nina gave a small, tired breath. I didn't feel strong. Strength rarely feels dramatic. She leaned lightly against the table. He told me independence was selfish, she said. Dependence benefits the controller. I kept apologizing. That reinforced his authority. She looked up at Adrian. You don't speak like someone guessing. I don't guess. Then tell me honestly, she said quietly. How dangerous is he? Adrian did not answer immediately. He is not violent publicly, he said finally. He relies on pressure systems. What does that mean? He creates circumstances where others act on his behalf. Her throat tightened. You think he'll try to reach my brother? Yes. Fear flickered across her expression. He doesn't even know where I am. He doesn't need to. She understood the implication. Pressure moves outward, Adrian continued. It seeks weaker entry points. My brother has nothing to do with this. That does not prevent leverage attempts. Nina closed her eyes briefly. I tried to protect him from everything, she said quietly. You still can. How? By remaining difficult to locate. She exhaled slowly. This feels unreal. Uncertainty often does. I thought leaving was the hardest part. Leaving is the beginning. Silence settled between them again. Nina studied the structured calm of the apartment, the measured precision of Adrian's movements, the absence of panic in his voice. You believe this can be contained, she said. Yes. You're confident. I am prepared. That's not the same. It is when preparation is sufficient. She nodded slowly. You don't underestimate people like Victor. No. You don't seem afraid of them either. Fear distorts timing, and timing matters to you. Timing determines outcomes. Nina rested her hands lightly on the back of a chair. What happens if he comes here directly? He won't. You can't guarantee that. I can reduce probability. And if probability fails, Adrian's expression remained steady. Then we respond proportionally. The calmness in his tone did not suggest aggression. It suggested readiness. Nina absorbed that carefully. You don't escalate unnecessarily, she said. No, but you don't retreat either. No. She gave a small nod. That explains why you don't seem surprised by any of this. Patterns repeat. And you've seen this pattern before. Yes. With similar outcomes? Yes. Nina folded her arms loosely. I hope I'm not another case study. You are not a case. Then what am I? Adrian paused briefly before answering. A responsibility introduced unexpectedly. That sounds complicated. It is manageable. She almost smiled. That's the first reassuring thing you've said all day. I did not intend reassurance. Still counts. Adrian picked up the tablet again, reviewing updated building access logs. Your presence here remains confidential, he said. No digital lease, no utility record in your name, minimal financial footprint. That was intentional. It was effective. For now. For now, he agreed. The shared phrase carried quiet understanding. Outside, evening light softened the skyline, reflecting faint gold across the glass. Inside, the structure of the arrangement continued to take shape. No promises, no emotional guarantees, only preparation, and the growing awareness that whatever came next would require more than simply remaining hidden. The shift in atmosphere became noticeable late that evening. Nina sat at the dining table reviewing a short list Adrian had asked her to prepare. It was not a list of demands, as she had initially feared, but a practical inventory of what she still needed access to in order to rebuild independence. Identification documents, teaching certificates, tax records, a small external hard drive she had left hidden behind books in the apartment she once shared with Victor. Each item represented a piece of her former life. Each item also represented exposure. Adrian stood across the room, reviewing messages on his phone, occasionally typing short responses. He did not ask unnecessary questions while she wrote. He did not attempt to guide her decisions, only clarified logistical details when necessary. You don't need everything immediately, he said calmly. I need enough to function, Nina replied. Functioning and recovering are separate processes. I can manage both. That depends on timing. She finished writing and slid the paper toward him. My teaching license is stored digitally, she explained, but the original copy is in a file box inside my old apartment. You won't retrieve it personally, Adrian said. I assume that. I will arrange access. That sounds complicated. It is manageable. She studied his expression carefully. You speak about difficulty as if it's routine. It often is. Nina folded her hands lightly on the table. I avoided collecting most of my belongings because I didn't want to create a pattern he could track. That was correct. I left clothes, books, even photographs. Possessions are replaceable. Memories aren't. Adrian acknowledged the distinction with a slight nod. Which memories matter most, he asked. The question caught her off guard. My parents, she said after a moment. There are letters my mother kept. I stored them in a small wooden box. Location? Bedroom closet, top shelf behind winter coats. Adrian noted the detail mentally. You prioritize personal documents over material items, he observed. I prioritize continuity, Nina corrected. Continuity stabilizes identity. She allowed herself a small breath of relief at the accuracy of that statement. I don't want my life defined by what I escaped, she said quietly. That depends on what you build next. I don't know what comes next. You will. That sounds optimistic. It is practical. Nina looked toward the window where the last light of day faded slowly behind the skyline. I used to think adulthood meant having everything figured out, she said. Stable job, stable relationship, predictable future. Predictability often hides dependency. I understand that now. What matters is what you understand next. She rested her chin lightly against her hand. I want stability without surrendering autonomy. That balance requires boundaries. I am still learning how to set them. You began when you left. That didn't feel like strength. Strength rarely feels comfortable. She nodded slowly. Adrian placed his phone down again, reviewing the list more carefully. You mentioned teaching, he said. What subject? Art. That requires patience and observation. You value observation. It helps people feel seen. Did Victor encourage your work? No. Why not? He said it distracted me from practical priorities, which were defined by him. Yes. Adrian leaned slightly against the table. Discouraging independent pursuits is a common method of control, he said. He didn't forbid it, Nina replied. He just made it inconvenient. Scheduled events during my classes, questioned whether the income justified the time. Indirect restriction? Yes. And over time, restriction feels voluntary. That's exactly what happened. She looked down briefly. I stopped painting altogether last year. Did you enjoy it? Yes. Then stopping created loss. I didn't recognize the loss until recently. Recognition often follows distance. Nina considered that carefully. I still have sketchbooks, she said. Packed away. Retrieve them. You think that matters right now? Yes. Why? Because rebuilding identity requires continuity with what existed before control. She studied him with quiet curiosity. You sound like someone who has rebuilt before. Adrian did not answer directly. Structure allows recovery, he said instead. That sounds practiced. It is learned. She did not push further. The conversation paused naturally. Adrian moved toward the kitchen, pouring water into 2 glasses and setting one in front of her. You should remain hydrated, he said. That sounds like something a doctor would say. Preparation includes physical stability. She accepted the glass with a small nod. You think about everything, she said. I think about what can be influenced. And what cannot? That requires acceptance. Do you accept easily? No. That sounds honest. I prefer accuracy. Nina allowed herself a faint smile. That might be the closest thing to humor I've heard from you. I was not attempting humor. Still counts. He inclined his head slightly in acknowledgement. Her attention drifted briefly to the hallway mirror, catching a glimpse of her own reflection. She looked tired, but not defeated. That difference mattered more than she expected. When I left Victor, she said quietly, I expected chaos. And instead, silence. Silence can feel unfamiliar. It feels temporary. Temporary does not mean fragile. It can, only if unprotected. Nina returned her focus to the present moment. You keep using that word, she said. Protected. Yes. You don't use the word saved. Saving implies dependency. And protection? Protection preserves autonomy. She considered that distinction carefully. I don't want to depend on you. You are not required to. But right now I do. Temporarily. For now, she agreed. The shared phrase settled between them again. Adrian picked up his phone once more, reading a message more carefully this time. A subtle shift occurred in his expression, not visible enough to cause alarm, but enough to suggest new information had arrived. Is something wrong? Nina asked. Your former apartment has not been accessed in 48 hours, he said. That's good, isn't it? It suggests Victor is searching elsewhere. Her stomach tightened. You mean closer? Yes. Does he know about this building? No indication yet. That doesn't feel reassuring. It is realistic. Nina exhaled slowly. I hate feeling like a problem someone else has to solve. You are not a problem, Adrian said calmly. Then what am I? A situation requiring precision. That sounds complicated. It is manageable. She nodded. I'll cooperate, she said, but I want transparency. You will have clarity where clarity reduces risk. That sounds selective. It is intentional. She accepted that answer for now. What should I expect next? She asked. Adjustment. In what way? Victor will attempt to create contact indirectly. Through work? Possibly. Through family? Likely. Fear flickered briefly across her expression. My brother doesn't deserve involvement, which is why preparation matters. Nina folded the list carefully, aligning the edges. I spent years trying to avoid conflict, she said quietly. Now it feels inevitable. Conflict exists regardless of avoidance. That sounds discouraging. It is factual. She looked up at him steadily. Then let's remain factual. Adrian acknowledged the statement with a small nod. For now, he said, we maintain stability. The call came earlier than Adrian expected. Late afternoon light stretched across the floor in long golden lines when his phone vibrated once against the table. He glanced at the screen, reading the message without visible reaction, but Nina noticed the stillness in his posture sharpen. What changed? She asked quietly. Victor contacted your former employer, Adrian said. Her chest tightened. What did he say? He requested confirmation of your employment status. That's not illegal. No, but it means he's looking. Yes. Nina folded her arms loosely, steadying her breathing. Did they tell him anything? No sensitive information was shared. You sound certain. I ensured the response was neutral. You spoke to them again. I confirmed their protocol. She absorbed that slowly. I don't like how easily he can reach into my life, she admitted. Influence relies on access points. And I left too many. You reduced most of them. Most isn't enough. It rarely is. Nina walked toward the window, watching people move along the sidewalk far below, unaware that someone among them might already be looking for her. I changed my phone, my bank account, my address, she said. I stopped using social media months ago. That delayed detection, but didn't prevent it. Nothing prevents entirely, Adrian replied calmly. Preparation reduces probability. She leaned lightly against the glass. He used to say people always reveal themselves eventually, she said. That privacy was temporary. Privacy without structure is temporary, Adrian said. And structure requires power. Yes. She turned back toward him. You speak about power like a neutral concept. Power is a tool, and tools depend on who holds them. Exactly. Nina returned to the table, resting her palms lightly against the surface. What happens now? She asked. Now we adjust timing. That sounds vague. It is precise. She waited. Victor will attempt indirect pressure, Adrian continued. He will look for confirmation. You are unstable, unreliable, or financially desperate. That sounds familiar, because he has used that method before. He once told my landlord I was behind on payments, she said quietly. Even when I wasn't. Financial reputation damage reduces credibility. He always framed it as concern. Concern is an effective disguise. Nina exhaled slowly. I hate how predictable this sounds. Predictability allows strategy, and strategy allows defense. Yes, she nodded once. Then what is the next step in your strategy? Adrian picked up his tablet, opening a screen displaying several lines of data. Victor's financial firm requested access to transaction monitoring software 2 weeks ago, he said. What does that mean? It suggests preparation for tracking irregular withdrawals. I withdrew cash gradually. Yes, but he noticed eventually. Yes, that means he suspects I planned this. Yes. Nina closed her eyes briefly. He always accused me of being impulsive, she said. Planning contradicts that narrative, and contradicting his narrative threatens his control. Yes. She opened her eyes again. Does he know where my brother lives? Possibly. Her breath caught. I tried to keep my family separate from everything. Control expands toward vulnerability. He promised he would never involve my family. Promises from controlling individuals often include conditional honesty. That sounds like a polite way to say he lies. It is a precise way to say it. She appreciated the distinction. My brother is finishing community college, she said. He works part-time nights. Schedule? Usually 6 p.m. to midnight. Adrian noted the information. He lives with roommates, Nina added. Shared housing. That reduces isolation risk. That doesn't eliminate risk. No. Fear surfaced quietly in her expression. He doesn't deserve this, she said. No one does. Silence settled briefly. Nina noticed Adrian reviewing additional information on the tablet, his attention focused but calm. You expected escalation this quickly? She asked. I expected pressure attempts within 72 hours. And we're inside that window. Yes. That's unsettling. It is informative. She folded her hands together, steadying herself. What if Victor contacts my brother directly? Then we respond. That sounds simple. It is structured. What does structured response mean? It means we prevent isolation. You would contact him? If necessary. He doesn't know anything about my situation. He will need limited awareness. I don't want him frightened. Fear without information is worse. She knew that was true. I always tried to protect him, Nina said. After our parents died, I made sure he never worried about finances. That required sacrifice. Yes. And sacrifice created vulnerability. She nodded. I thought stability meant absorbing pressure quietly. Absorbing pressure often strengthens the source applying it. That took me too long to understand. Understanding arrived. That doesn't erase consequences. No, but it changes future outcomes. She appreciated the phrasing. Nina moved slowly toward the sink, rinsing her glass, grounding herself in simple actions. I don't want this situation to escalate into something dangerous, she said. It already has potential. I mean legally dangerous. Victor is operating within legal gray areas. That sounds calculated. It is. She dried her hands carefully. I assumed leaving would reduce conflict, she said. Leaving removed compliance. And removed his control. Yes. And now he wants control restored. Yes. She met Adrian's gaze steadily. You don't seem intimidated by men like him. I am familiar with men like him. That's not reassuring. It is relevant. Relevant how? I understand escalation thresholds. You mean how far someone is willing to go? Yes. And Victor? He prefers influence over exposure. That sounds less violent. It can be more persistent. Nina absorbed that quietly. I never saw him angry, she admitted. That almost made it worse. Quiet control often appears reasonable. He always sounded logical. Logic can be used selectively. She leaned lightly against the counter. Do you believe he will attempt legal pressure next? Yes. What kind? Fraud allegations, financial misconduct claims, character damage. That could affect future employment. Yes. That could follow me for years. Yes. Her shoulders tensed slightly. I don't want my future defined by his narrative. Then we control the narrative. How? Documentation. You mentioned that before. Yes. You're already building records. Yes. That feels overwhelming. It is preventative. She gave a small breath. You really do anticipate everything. I anticipate patterns, and I am now part of one of those patterns. Yes. That's unsettling. It is manageable. She allowed a faint nod. What do you need from me now? She asked. Accuracy. In what form? Details about Victor's habits. She thought carefully. He works late, she said. Prefers private meetings. Avoids written communication when possible. That suggests risk awareness. He deletes messages frequently. That suggests operational caution. He tracks financial timing closely. That suggests control reinforcement. Nina hesitated before continuing. He doesn't like uncertainty. Few controllers do. If he cannot locate me quickly, he becomes patient. Patience can be more dangerous than impulse. Yes. She exhaled slowly. I never thought leaving would require strategy. Leaving always requires strategy. I thought it required courage. Courage initiates action. Strategy sustains it. She appreciated the clarity. Outside, evening light dimmed gradually as city lights replaced daylight. Inside, the atmosphere remained calm but alert. What happens if he realizes I'm not alone? She asked quietly. Adrian paused briefly before answering. Then he recalculates. And you? I do the same. She studied his expression carefully. You really believe this can be controlled? I believe influence can be redirected. That sounds like chess. It often is. Nina allowed herself a small breath of steadiness. For now, she said quietly, I will focus on staying invisible. Adrian inclined his head slightly. For now, he agreed. And once again, the phrase carried more weight than its simplicity suggested. By the third day, silence inside the apartment no longer felt temporary. It felt structured. Nina had begun to understand the rhythm of Adrian's world. He woke early, rarely after 6. Coffee without sugar. News reviewed quickly, but never obsessively. Calls handled with efficiency rather than display. He did not raise his voice, did not repeat himself, and never seemed rushed. Control, she realized, did not always look aggressive. Sometimes it looked disciplined. That distinction mattered more than she expected. She sat near the window with a notebook Adrian had provided, writing small observations about what she would need in order to rebuild independence. Employment options. Updated identification records. Potential places to live once relocation became possible. Each thought felt fragile but necessary. Her life had narrowed for 2 years until the idea of planning her own future had begun to feel unfamiliar. Now the possibility felt both hopeful and unsettling. Adrian remained in the adjacent office for most of the morning, the low murmur of conversation drifting occasionally through the partially open door. His tone remained calm even when discussions clearly involved negotiation. He never sounded defensive. He sounded prepared. At noon, he stepped into the living area, setting a folder on the table. These are preliminary documents, he said. Nina looked up. What kind of documents? Verification materials that confirm your employment history and educational credentials. You already accessed that? I confirmed publicly available records. That feels fast. It is routine. She hesitated before opening the folder. Copies of her teaching certification, university transcripts, and tax summaries appeared neatly organized. She had not seen some of these documents in years. "You kept everything," she said quietly. "I located what already existed. This makes rebuilding possible. That is the intention." She studied the papers carefully, noticing details she had forgotten. "I had plans," she said quietly. "You still do. I postponed them. Postponement is reversible." She nodded slowly. "I used to think stability meant permanence," she admitted. "Permanence rarely exists. That realization feels uncomfortable. Adaptation often does." She closed the folder gently. "Why are you helping me prepare for independence?" she asked. "Because dependence increases long-term risk. That benefits you?" "It benefits stability." "That sounds strategic." "It is practical." Nina folded her hands carefully. "I don't want to become part of your obligations. You already are temporarily. But temporary arrangements can become permanent. Not if boundaries remain clear." She appreciated that answer. "Then let's keep boundaries clear," she said. "That is the objective." A quiet pause followed. "You mentioned documentation would help control the narrative," she said. "Yes. What narrative is he building? That you are unstable, unreliable, financially irresponsible? That sounds familiar. Consistency strengthens false claims. I never missed payments. Accuracy does not prevent accusations." She nodded once. "He always positioned himself as reasonable," she said. "Calm, concerned, patient. That increases credibility and makes resistance appear irrational." "Yes." She leaned slightly back in the chair. "I used to question my own reactions constantly," she admitted. "That is a common result of prolonged psychological pressure. I second-guessed every decision. That reduces resistance. I thought compromise would reduce conflict. Compromise often reinforces expectation." She allowed that truth to settle. "I'm still learning the difference between cooperation and surrender," she said. "That distinction defines autonomy." Nina stood slowly and moved toward the window, letting natural light fall across her face. "I don't want fear to shape every decision I make now," she said. "Fear should inform decisions, not control them." "That sounds balanced." "It is necessary." She turned back toward him. "You don't speak like someone improvising." "I rarely improvise. That must require constant awareness. It requires discipline." "Did you always live this way?" "No." That answer surprised her. "What changed?" "Circumstances required structure." She did not push further. Everyone had histories they revealed selectively. "Victor believed structure belonged to him alone," she said quietly. "Control often claims exclusivity. He didn't like unpredictability. Few controllers do. I used to apologize for things I hadn't done just to prevent escalation. Preemptive apology reinforces hierarchy." "Yes." She folded her arms loosely. "I don't want to live like that again." "You won't." "You sound certain." "I am." "Because of preparation?" "Yes." She considered that carefully. "You believe preparation creates freedom." "It creates options." "And options create freedom." "Yes." She nodded slowly. "That makes sense." Adrian's phone vibrated again, the subtle shift in his attention almost invisible. "New information?" she asked. "A private investigator has contacted your former landlord," he said. Her chest tightened. "That was fast." "Victor is accelerating." "Did the landlord reveal anything?" "No confirmed information. But the investigator is close." "Yes." Nina pressed her fingertips lightly against the table. "I underestimated how persistent he would be." "Persistence is a control method." "He never gave up arguments either." "That pattern is consistent." She exhaled quietly. "What happens if the investigator tracks my previous financial activity?" "Your cash withdrawals limit digital trails." "That was intentional." "It was effective." "For how long?" "Long enough." She met his gaze steadily. "I don't want anyone harmed because of me. No one will be harmed unnecessarily." "That sounds carefully worded." "It is accurate." "You don't promise outcomes you cannot guarantee." "I do not." She appreciated that honesty more than reassurance. "What do you need from me now?" she asked. "Consistency." "In behavior?" "In decisions." "I can manage that." "Consistency reduces detection." "That sounds like a strategy manual." "It is basic operational discipline." Nina gave a faint breath of humor. "I never imagined my life would require operational discipline." Circumstances rarely announce themselves in advance. That feels true. She picked up the folder again, reviewing the documents with more confidence. I want to return to teaching eventually, she said. You will. I want my own apartment again. You will. I want quiet mornings without fear. That is achievable. She looked up carefully. You don't say things lightly. No. That makes those statements meaningful. They are realistic. She allowed a small moment of relief. I don't want to depend on protection forever, she said. You won't. I want independence that cannot be taken away. That requires structural separation. From him, yes. And from fear, yes. She closed the folder once more. I will follow the structure for now, she said. For now, Adrian agreed. The familiar phrase carried deeper understanding now. Trust had not replaced caution, but clarity had begun to replace confusion. For the first time in a long while, Nina felt something unfamiliar beginning to return. Not comfort, not certainty, something quieter, the possibility that her decisions still belonged to her, and that possibility, fragile as it was, felt worth protecting. The change came without warning. Late evening settled across Manhattan in muted reflections of gold and gray, the city quieter but never fully still. Nina had begun recognizing the subtle differences between silence that meant peace and silence that meant anticipation. This silence belonged to the second kind. Adrian ended a phone call in the office and remained still for several seconds afterward, as if measuring the weight of new information before deciding how much to reveal. When he stepped into the living room, his expression had not changed, but the precision in his movements had sharpened. What happened? Nina asked calmly. Victor has shifted strategy, Adrian replied. Her chest tightened slightly. How? He has stopped searching for your location directly. That doesn't sound reassuring. It means he believes pressure will bring results faster. She folded her arms loosely, already understanding the implication. My brother, she said. Yes. Nina exhaled slowly, forcing herself to remain steady. Did he contact him? Not yet. But he will. Yes. She walked toward the window, grounding herself in the steady grid of city lights stretching endlessly beyond the glass. I always tried to keep my family separate, she said quietly. Separation reduces vulnerability but does not eliminate connection, Adrian replied. He knows my brother is important to me, which makes him relevant. That feels unfair. Leverage rarely follows fairness. She nodded once, absorbing the reality. What is he doing exactly? She asked. He hired a second investigator. That means he's serious. He was always serious. Nina rested her hands lightly on the window frame. My brother doesn't even know the details of why I left, she said. He will need limited information. I don't want him frightened. Information prevents manipulation. She understood that. I should call him, she said. You will, Adrian agreed, but not yet. Why wait? Because timing matters. That sounds like something you say often. Because timing determines outcomes. Nina turned toward him. You already have a plan. Yes. What does it involve? Documentation, exposure control, and narrative correction. That sounds complicated. It is structured. She hesitated before asking the next question. Is he accusing me of something new? Yes. Her stomach tightened. What now? He filed a financial complaint claiming unauthorized transfer of funds. That's impossible. I am aware. I never had access to his accounts. He is not attempting accuracy. He is attempting leverage. Her jaw tightened slightly. He always framed accusations as concern, she said. He would say he was worried about my stress levels, my judgment, my financial decisions. That creates plausible deniability and makes me appear unstable. Yes. She folded her arms, steadying her breathing. I hate how predictable this sounds. Predictability allows countermeasures. And what are the countermeasures now? Adrian placed a thin digital recorder on the table. We allow him to speak. Nina looked at the device. You want evidence? Yes. He won't confess directly. He doesn't need to. You believe he will imply enough. Yes. And that will be sufficient legally? It will support a pattern. She considered that carefully. You've done this before. Yes. With similar outcomes? Yes. Her gaze moved from the recorder back to Adrian. You remain calm even when escalation becomes obvious. Calm prevents error. I feel like I'm catching up to a situation you anticipated from the beginning. I anticipated possibilities. and one of those possibilities was that he would try to damage my credibility. Yes, that affects employment. Yes, that affects housing. Yes, that affects everything. Yes. She absorbed the seriousness without panic. I don't want my life defined by accusations that aren't true, she said quietly. Then accuracy must be documented early. That sounds like a legal principle. It is. Nina sat slowly, her thoughts aligning with new clarity. You never tried to convince me he would stop, she said. No. You never said everything would be fine. No. You only said preparation would reduce risk. Yes. That feels more honest than reassurance. It is more useful. She nodded once. Then what happens next? She asked. You will contact Victor. Her eyes widened slightly. You want me to speak with him? Yes. That feels dangerous. It will be controlled. I don't want to provoke him. You won't provoke. You will clarify. That sounds similar. It is different. She considered that distinction carefully. What exactly do I say? You request closure. He won't accept closure. He will attempt to regain influence. And that helps us how? It reveals strategy. Nina studied the recorder again. You want him to demonstrate his intent? Yes. And if he refuses to speak? He won't. You sound certain. Control requires communication. She inhaled slowly. I don't want to sound afraid. You won't. I don't want to sound dependent. You won't. I don't want to give him emotional leverage. You won't. That sounds very confident. It is structured. She gave a small breath of reluctant humor. You make everything sound like architecture. In a sense, it is. She rested her hands on the table. What if hearing his voice affects my judgment? That is possible. And if it does, we adjust. She appreciated that answer. You don't expect perfection. I expect consistency. That feels achievable. Adrian nodded once. You will speak calmly, he said. You will state boundaries clearly. You will not argue. That will frustrate him. Yes. He prefers emotional reactions. Yes. So I give him none. Yes. That sounds difficult. It becomes easier with structure. Nina straightened slightly. For 2 years I adjusted my tone constantly, she said. Measured every sentence. Avoided confrontation. And now? Now I choose my words. That is progress. She looked at the recorder once more. Justice rarely looks dramatic, does it? She asked quietly. No. It looks procedural. Yes. That feels less satisfying. It is more effective. She allowed herself a steady breath. For now, she said, I will follow the structure. For now, Adrian agreed. The phrase carried weight again, no longer tentative but intentional. Nina picked up the recorder carefully, feeling its small weight in her hand. For the first time since leaving Victor, she was not simply reacting. She was participating in the outcome. And participation, she realized, was the first step back toward ownership of her own life. Nina did not rush the call. Adrian insisted on timing for a reason, and for the first time since leaving Victor, she understood the value of patience. Fear once pushed her to react quickly, to apologize quickly, to resolve tension quickly. Now she understood that urgency often served the person applying pressure. The recorder rested lightly on the table beside her phone. You do not need to prolong the conversation, Adrian reminded her calmly. Clarity does not require length. Nina nodded once. I remember, she said. You state boundaries. You do not explain decisions repeatedly. I understand. You allow silence when necessary. That part feels unfamiliar. Silence shifts control. She absorbed the thought carefully. Victor had always filled silence first. Silence made him uncomfortable. Silence allowed reflection. Reflection weakened influence. Nina picked up the phone slowly, feeling the subtle weight of decision settle into her posture. For 2 years I waited for permission, she said quietly. You no longer require permission. She pressed the call button. Victor answered on the second ring. Nina. Her name sounded the same as always. Calm, measured, confident. I wondered when you would contact me, he continued. I'm calling to clarify something, Nina said evenly. You left without explanation, Victor replied. That created concern. I left because the situation was no longer healthy. That sounds dramatic. It is accurate. Another pause. You could have discussed this with me, he said. I attempted to. You misunderstood my intentions. I understand them clearly now. His tone sharpened slightly. You appear influenced. I am informed. That distinction is subjective. No, she said calmly. It is structural. Silence followed. You withdrew money gradually, Victor said. That indicates planning. Yes. Planning suggests mistrust. Planning suggests awareness. You did not communicate dissatisfaction. I did. You exaggerated constraints. I identified patterns. His patience thinned slightly beneath the controlled tone. You are placing yourself at risk financially, he said. Without guidance, decisions become unstable. I am capable of managing my decisions. That confidence appears new. That confidence was always present. Another pause. You accessed accounts irregularly, Victor continued. That creates legal complications. I accessed my own earnings. You misunderstand financial structures. I understand personal autonomy. Victor exhaled slowly, the sound controlled but audible. This situation can still be resolved privately, he said. Returning would eliminate unnecessary complications. I am not returning. You are allowing external influence to distort judgment. I am choosing independence. That choice carries consequences. I accept consequences. Victor shifted tactics smoothly. You appear emotionally distressed, he said. That can affect employment stability. My employment history is documented. Documentation does not guarantee interpretation. False accusations reveal intent. Silence again. Nina, Victor said quietly. You are making decisions based on temporary emotion. I am making decisions based on sustained observation. You always valued stability. I still do. Then returning remains the logical choice. Stability without autonomy is not stability. A longer pause followed. You believe someone is protecting you, Victor said carefully. I am protecting myself. That is unrealistic. It is necessary. His voice cooled. You are damaging your own credibility. My credibility does not belong to you. You are isolating yourself. I am establishing boundaries. Boundaries require negotiation. Boundaries require recognition. Victor's tone hardened subtly. You are creating unnecessary conflict. I am preventing further harm. You are exaggerating harm. I am acknowledging impact. You always struggled with perspective. I have gained perspective. Silence expanded again, longer this time. You will find independence expensive, Victor said finally. Freedom is often expensive. You are not financially prepared. I am structurally prepared. That sounds rehearsed. That sounds clear. Victor paused again. You appear coached. I appear decisive. You are allowing strangers to shape your judgment. I am shaping my own future. His patience thinned further. You will regret this decision. I regret remaining as long as I did. Another silence. You are making this unnecessarily difficult, Victor said. I am making this final. Nina. Yes. You are misunderstanding consequences. I understand them clearly. You are placing yourself in unstable conditions. I am removing myself from unstable influence. You will need support eventually. I will choose that support freely. You are not thinking long-term. I am thinking long-term for the first time. Victor exhaled slowly. You believe this conversation strengthens your position. It clarifies it. You always valued reason. I still do. Then reason suggests cooperation. Reason suggests distance. A pause. You will contact me again, Victor said. No. You will require assistance. No. You will encounter difficulty. Yes. And when that happens, I will adapt. Victor's voice cooled further. This is not finished. It is finished. You cannot conclude unilaterally. I already have. Silence stretched one final time. Then the call ended. Nina placed the phone down slowly. Her hands did not tremble. That was sufficient, Adrian said calmly. He didn't shout, she replied. He didn't need to. He implied instability. Yes. He implied legal pressure. Yes. He implied dependency. Yes. Nina nodded once. That confirms pattern consistency. Adrian inclined his head slightly. Justice rarely begins dramatically, he said. It begins with documentation. That felt quiet, Nina admitted. Quiet is often effective. She looked toward the recorder. That conversation would have terrified me last month. And now? Now it clarifies everything. She exhaled slowly. I no longer feel confused. Clarity reduces manipulation. I see the structure now. That is progress. She rested her hands lightly against the table. I am not afraid of his voice anymore, she said. That matters. I am not dependent on his approval. That matters more. She looked toward the window, the city lights steady and indifferent to private conflicts unfolding quietly inside high-rise apartments. For the first time, Nina said, I feel like the future belongs to me again. Adrian did not respond immediately. Control did not always require possession. Sometimes control required restraint. You will rebuild carefully, he said finally. I will rebuild deliberately, she replied. Outside, Manhattan moved forward as it always did. Inside, something quieter had shifted. The conflict had not disappeared, but the power had changed hands. And sometimes, quiet justice did not arrive with noise. It arrived with clarity, and clarity, once gained, could not easily be taken away again. The recorder remained on the table. This story reminds us that control does not always appear as force. Sometimes it arrives quietly, disguised as care, guidance, or protection. True strength is not found in power over others, but in the courage to recognize manipulation and reclaim one's dignity step by step. Freedom is rarely given in a single moment. It is built through clarity, boundaries, and the willingness to choose self-respect over comfort. Justice is not always loud or dramatic. Often, it works quietly in the background, restoring balance through truth and persistence. The story encourages us to remember that no matter how deeply someone has been influenced or silenced, the ability to choose again remains the most powerful form of independence. This video is a work of fiction created with the assistance of artificial intelligence. All characters, events, and situations are not real and do not represent any actual people or true stories. The content is intended for storytelling and emotional illustration only.